Alright guys, so I did this 6 APB stuff at the weekend. It was really good, yeah. Today is Monday, we did it on Saturday. I feel completely fine now. I know that normally, like with MDMA for example, if you do it on a Friday, you usually feel pretty bad on Tuesday. If you do it on a Saturday, you usually feel pretty bad on Wednesday. There can be like a delayed reaction, but you tend to not feel great before then. It's just that it's at its worst on those days. And yeah, at the moment I feel completely normal. Like, I find it hard to imagine that I will have any particularly sort of bad symptoms or come down or anything later in the week. I'll update if I do, but I really don't feel like it. I feel completely fine. I felt fine yesterday as well, just tired basically. I was really tired this morning, accidentally overslept massively, and that was only because we'd planned to start very early. We planned to start at like 2 in the afternoon, which I personally think is really good with drugs like this, to start like in the afternoon rather than in the evening. And we ended up starting at like 5:30 or something, and we were up until about 7:30 a.m. because it was a really fun night, and that was a bit stupid really. I think staying up that late in itself is going to make you feel like crap really. Like, I always say, like, if you stayed up till 7 in the morning drinking caffeine, even if you weren't doing drugs, just having, like, caffeine or whatever, you would probably still feel like shit really, and it would probably fuck up your sleep cycle, and you'd feel a bit depressed for some of that week. It'd have some effect on you. I think you wouldn't feel quite at 100%. Anyway, the stuff itself, yeah, it was amazing. Some people have said it was slightly psychedelic. I didn't find it to be psychedelic at all. We had the, I don't know how you pronounce it, succinate, I don't know, succinate, I have no idea, form of it. And so that's a bit milder, it's a bit weaker, so you have to do a bit more. So we did 150 mg in water. Taste was pretty bad. And yeah, that kicked in. Started to feel it after about 45-50 minutes. Definitely could feel something, feeling sort of waves. Felt a bit funny or whatever, but felt good. Then by an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 20 minutes, I was feeling great. 2 hours, we were just like absolutely buzzing, like really, really, really euphoric, gurning a lot, eyes rolling around and shit, but not in a horrible way. Didn't know, sometimes with MDMA you feel a bit kind of sick. You feel like, and you're like, you can't control your mouth, and obviously you feel good, but it's like a bit kind of disgusting. It didn't have that disgusting vibe to it, but there was definitely a lot of like teeth grinding and eye rolling and shit. And one thing I noticed about this is music was amazing, and it wasn't so much just the music itself, but like, and we don't even have good speakers here. We're staying in a temporary place. We were just having to listen to it on the TV, and still it sounded amazing, like just crappy TV speakers, but also just like talking about it and choosing songs. It was like really, we just kept thinking of all this stuff we wanted to listen to and talking about it and having a really good time listening to stuff. And yeah, it was really, it had like really, 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 really good conversations, like conversations that were quite difficult conversations, that we wouldn't normally have, that were quite important, like kind of emotional conversations, the sort of thing you have often on like MDMA and stuff. But it felt a bit more, as many people have reported of this stuff, it felt a bit more real, a bit more sincere and clear-headed and kind of down to earth than some MDMA experiences. Although I do think those can be really great as well in the same way. But it just felt, yeah, like, just really good in that way, like really helpful and positive. The only thing was, we just very, very, very suddenly kind of came down. Like, we had all these chats, we listened to music, we were doing stuff, and we went out for a walk. We got back from our walk, and it was just like, I don't know, just instantly felt like euphoria had kind of faded. Both felt pretty anxious and kind of stimulated, and this was only about 5 hours in, and I'd heard this stuff was meant to last a really long time, so it was kind of confusing. Maybe 5 or 6 hours in, and it could be because we broke our routine. We went to the supermarket, and she had to wait outside with the dog, so I went in by myself. So it wasn't like a fun experience, I went to get food and shit, and it was quite cold outside, and we had a big walk home and stuff. And sometimes I find on drugs like this, you kind of, it's not the drug itself that's worn off, it's that you kind of get out of your kind of pattern of what you're doing that's enjoyable, and you start worrying like, oh, am I, do I feel like shit or whatever, and it kind of puts you into a bad space and you can't really enjoy yourself. So there could have been an element of that. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, we decided to redose by snorting it, and we snorted about 50 mg probably each. And then I read afterwards that apparently that's not very effective. Some people find it works for them, but some people say it doesn't really do anything if you snort it. And it didn't really seem to, so we then put a bit of it under the tongue, sublingual, and that was, we weren't really sure. We waited a while, and we sort of we got into that weird cycle where it was like, this isn't really doing anything. We waited like half an hour, nothing was really happening, so we did a bit more. We waited a bit longer, we did a bit more, we waited a bit longer, we kept putting more under the tongue. We weren't sure it was working. Gradually it was like a bit better, the anxiety was fading. Obviously it wasn't like it was before. We weren't going to like peak like that again, because that was crazy. And we just kept doing it, just sort of this silly thing, rather than just doing one big bit under the tongue, we kept kind of doing a little bit more, thinking we don't want to do too much. And because my scales don't go down to a certain point, like I need to get more precise ones, but I had to just err on the side of caution and just do quite small bits that I knew were less than 20 mg or whatever. Anyway, after a long while of doing that, eventually we got like a really nice buzz on again, and the last part of the night was much less intensely euphoric, but in a good way, really. It was like much more chilled. We were just listening to music and sitting around and chatting, and it was really, really nice and more like relaxed, less physical symptoms, more comfy. It was easy to eat. I was like eating loads of stuff. We were just sitting around. Again, music sounded great. Having a really nice time together. And yeah, it was really good. And then it kind of gradually faded, came down pretty easily that time around. Just took some Valiums and went to bed, fell asleep pretty quickly. So the second time around, there was like no come down. So it was kind of weird that earlier in the night we came down so sharply. I don't quite know why that happened. I don't know if it's like, I know you're supposed to take magnesium on these drugs. I mean, we took magnesium and a couple of other supplements. I don't know if they like flushed out or something. I don't think that's likely. I know it sounds a bit stupid, but I don't know. It was kind of odd. It just very suddenly kind of dropped off. Maybe because we drank it in water instead of bombing it. I don't know if that means it's processed differently. I'm not sure. But yeah, I must remember to look that up. Also, if you saw my previous video on 2CB Fly, the person I'm doing it with, she had really bad UTIs on that, like terrible. It gave her like the worst UTIs ever, and it basically like ruined her night. Both times it just completely ruined her night, and that kind of came back when we did this. It's kind of weird. I think though it's because it's not been long since we did the 2CB Fly, so it's kind of exacerbating a pre-existing problem. We're only doing stuff this frequently because we're sort of away and staying in quite a big house temporarily, so it's just like quite fun to do stuff here. And yeah, that was the only thing. But I mean, I didn't have any. It gave me the shits pretty badly, actually, the 6 APB, as did the 2CB Fly. But this stuff, yeah, sort of wreaked a little bit of havoc on my stomach, but not enough that I really cared, to be honest. Like, I kind of just expect stuff like that to happen with most drugs, and it doesn't really bother me. Yeah, so overall, I really liked it. Definitely would do it again. Hasn't seemed to have had any negative effects, really. I would just definitely next time I would aim to sleep earlier, start earlier, sleep earlier, and just be a bit more prepared in that sense. And probably, barring any new information regarding the difference between swallowing it in water and bombing it, assuming that doesn't make any difference, therefore I can assume that it would have the same kind of peak and drop off next time. What I would probably do is take 100 mg, then wait an hour, then take 50 mg, and have a kind of smoother, longer come up, and again a kind of smoother come down, because it was a bit unpleasant, that part, and sort of, yeah, it's not very nice when that happens. I find I don't really like that feeling. Yeah, cool. So that's all really 6 APB. Yeah, good stuff. Really nice.